با سلامی گرم و صمیمی به شما عزیزان و بینندگان تایم تیوی، خیلی خوشحال هستم که در کنار شما عزیزان هستم. در برنامه امروز سوژه ها با آتوسا براتون مهمان عزیزی دارم که خیلی ایمیل داشتم که راجبش صحبت بکنیم و آپدیت بگیریم که ببینیم که چی شده عزیزان. مهمان امروز من شریف راست میرکریمی هستش. Salam, hi Sheriff, how are you doing?
Salam, hi.
Now I have
Hello.
to get used of Sheriff Ras Mirkarimi.
True, very true.
Well, I'm glad to have him here. I'm glad to have you here. خیلی
pleasure.
خوشحالم که آقای راست میرکریمی که سابقهشون پلوی شما همه هستش که چقدر زحمت کشتن بر جامعه ایرانی و he's been always there for Iranian minorities and every minority, every person actually. I say that they need help. He's been there و خیلی خوشحال هستم که امروز با ما هستن در استودیوی آقای مجید خستوان در سن حوزه و از تایم تیوی. So Ross, tell me what's going on. I will call you Ross like the old time, but let me Ross or Mr. Ross Mirkarimi, Sheriff. So you used to be a supervisor of San Francisco. For the people that they are joining us, would you give us a brief summary of what is going on with your career and your life in San Francisco?
I'll try to sum it up in a short statement. So I am the sheriff of San Francisco, the city and county of San Francisco. San Francisco is the only incorporated city and county in the state of California. There are 58 counties in California. I was a member when we spoke a few times of the Board of Supervisors. I was elected to District 5, which was the Haight-Ashbury, very famous in the Western Addition area, for 7 years. And then in 2011, I ran for higher office, Sheriff of San Francisco, and won after a very spirited race.
I remember that.
Yeah, it was a great campaign, and frankly, I don't think I would have been elected if it wasn't for, I think, the Iranian-American Persian community. I felt the strength of their support and love. And I think that really contributed, I think, to our success, where I am the only elected sheriff that is Iranian American in the United States. So that's a distinction I hold with great honor. And in the time that I've been sheriff, despite a very turbulent year that I had last year, where there were some months where I did not serve as sheriff, but I had prevailed in my battle to remain a sheriff, we've done quite a bit for San Francisco, the people of San Francisco, and reforming the criminal justice system. It's actually making quite a bit of news around the state and nationally.
Okay, let me just go this far to translate.
Oh,
and
sorry.
we have some questions. It's okay. Just a brief translation. عزیزان میدونم که همه شما انگلیسی بلد هستین و در اینجا زندگی میکنین و خیلی سخته که من بخوام کلمه کلمه برای شما ترجمه کنم، ولی خواستیم بگیم که آقای شریف راست میرکریمی که شریف سان فرانسیسکو هستن، سان فرانسیسکو یکی از بزرگترین شهرهاست همونطور که میدونید و ایشون اولین ایرانی هستن که در امریکا، اولین آمریکایی ایرانی اصلی هستن که در آمریکا شریف شدن و این خیلی خودشون افتخار میکنن و ما هم تو جامعه ایرانی همیشه من تاکید کردم که ما واقعا باید سعی کنیم که همبستگی داشته باشیم و در جاهایی که جاهای دولتی و گاورمنت هستش، پلیس هست، شریف هست، سنت هست، هر جا که هستش توی گاورمنت آفیس یه مقدار آفیشالای خودمون هم داشته باشیم که به ما ریلیت بخورن و خیلی خوشحال هستم که ایشون انتخاب شدن. ایرانی‌ها رو تشکر کردن که بهشون کمک کردن که انتخاب بشن برای شریف. So what is the difference between the sheriff department and police? فرق بین شریف و پلیس چیه؟
Sheriff is elected, the police are appointed. So if there was ever to be, for example, which some cities have consolidated their police and sheriff departments together, the police would be consolidated and I would be their leader as the elected. The Constitution of California and the City and County of San Francisco gives us the higher authority of governance. And the jurisdiction breakdown in San Francisco is the police are the primary responder for public safety, and we are responsible for the management of those that are in custody in the jails. We assist SFPD, the police department, in public safety and law enforcement.
So you assist them when there is a time that they need sheriff to
Many times, yeah.
help out.
Many of the government buildings in San Francisco are our jurisdiction, and some of them, like the county hospital, you see a lot of activity that can occur there, people being transported there, or activity that just erupts from there, we respond to the crime and law enforcement issues. And all civil matters are carried out by us as well, too. I have a force of over 1,100 people. It's a mid-level department. The budget of my department is about $188 million. And I have a police force of about 855.
رقم‌های زیادی رو گفتن که من نمیخوام اشتباهشو بگم، ولی پلیسای زیادی زیر این دیپارتمنت کار میکنن و هر وقت که احتیاج باشه که پلیس بخواد شریف هم داشته باشه، شریف‌ها کمک میکنن. شریف انتخاب میشه، پلیس الکتد میشه، یعنی از طرف مردم بعد رای بیاره شریف که انتخاب بشه، مردم انتخابش میکنن. و در مورد راست میرکرمی هم خیلی از مردم واقعا رفتن انتخابش کردن و براش جنگیدن. I remember you said that sheriff gets elected by people. People have to vote, right?
Right.
I understand.
The police is appointed.
Yes.
So the chief of police and their command staff, they are subordinate to a commission of citizenry and the mayor. So the mayor can direct the police chief. The mayor cannot, in a sense, direct the sheriff.
I remember that when you were running, a lot of people devoted their time. They really voted for you. They believe in you. شریف میرکریمی که از شریفای خیلی معدودیه که من در آمریکا دیدم که مردم خیلی براش باید بگم حتی جون میدن. من دیدم که براش صف بود که بخواد بهش کمک بکنن. lines of people که براش باشن، بهش رای بدن، تو هیرینگاش بیان. and he had the support of people. People really love you in San Francisco. I've talked to people, to taxi drivers. When I have a taxi, I usually have a taxi in San Francisco. Yes.
No, since you get a taxi, it's
yes.
good.
Oh, you have to go stand in the front of the famous hotels, though, when you get off the bus.
That's true. That's very true.
Otherwise, you won't find it.
That's right.
And everybody talks very nice about you, like you are a people person. Can you tell my audience about how it makes you difference what is the difference between you and other sheriffs that they've been in there and other states and cities? Because people are saying that Ross Mirkarimi is progressive and he's for people, pro people, and people love him. And he's been close to regular people that they're working hard.
Well, I think you're being very generous, and I appreciate that. The truth is, my politics has always been rooted in the grassroots, and that's been, I think, demonstrated when I was a supervisor, city councilman, as sheriff, and even before that in my neighborhood activism. It's always been connecting with the working class, but with all people, and to make sure that my philosophy, which is I believe government should work as hard as they can for the people, is translated into that level of attention that I would give people and communities as I've tried to do. And I think that's earned me a reputation of having a very strong work ethic and being true to my word and sincere that I'll get the job done. And when I exited the Board of Supervisors after 7 years, they had given me, a nice send-off message, and they said, and it's true, I legislated more than any supervisor almost in history of San Francisco.
Could you tell us a few of your legislations?
Oh, well, some of them are actually nationally and internationally famous, and they're different themes. Yes. For example, on policing and law enforcement, I legislated where I required the police to walk foot beats, and I don't consider that novel, but they resisted me, and I won my campaign.
What do you mean by that exactly?
I wanted police to walk beats in very distressed areas. Community policing, that's number one.
Let me just say that quickly.
Oh, sorry.
کارهایی که کردن که با بقیه فرق می‌کرد اینه که خیلی کمک کردن در تمام سطح آمریکا مشهور هستن که یه قانونای خاص رو گذاشتن. یکیشون این بوده که پلیس رو مجبور کردن که با پا جاهایی که کرایم اریا هستش، جاهایی که سخت تاف نیبرهودا هستش راه بره و مواظب مردم باشه. قبلا این کار نمی‌کردن که بخواد پلیس نیبرهودی که ترابل هست و میدونن که توش تیراندازی چیزای مختلف هست راه بره، which is a very very big help for the community.
It was a big help. We saw the corresponding drop in crime, violent crime, and it holds true even many years later. The other, to show range of the kind of things I legislated, I was the first local councilman to put a ban on plastic bags. And
Yes, I know about that. Oh, God, I know about
Well,
that. Every time I forget my plastic bags.
Yeah. Well, it actually earned me a whole
Recognition.
write-up in People magazine, and I did not know it when I did it, but I was the first in the hemisphere, North and South America. Nobody did it. But the way that it's caught on, it's just stunning. I mean,
Is that because you are environmentalist?
well, I
has
do.
to
I
with
have
that?
I have a
What was the
background
root of
in
that?
a master's in environmental science. In fact, it was a master's in environmental science in my training as an environmental scientist that took me to Iraq in 1991
Wow, I never knew that.
with the UN. I led the environmental team with a group called the Harvard Study Team that inspected the environmental damage to Iraq after the first Gulf War.
Wow.
So I had continued to build on that, and then in the late 1990s, I was working with the special agents of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency on environmental crimes. So my law enforcement career actually started about 20 years ago, but working on forensics. My specialty was environmental forensics and forensics in understanding crime.
Okay, before I forget,
Sorry.
that's so much for me to translate. Let me tell them, I'm
Well,
sorry.
that's why I was asking. I didn't know you were translating
That's
or
why
not.
I
so-
sometimes cutting you a little by little.
Sure.
Um,
We could start over if you want.
No, it's great. So,
I hope you're editing.
راست گفتش که تنها کسی بود که در آمریکا و در این منطقه به خصوص در آمریکای شمالی و جنوبی که به خاطر بک‌گراندی که تو انوایرمنت داره، توی محیط زیست داره، پلاستیک بگ و اگه بدونین شما عزیزان که خیلی جاها از سان فرانسیسکو شروع شد که وقتی میخواین برین خرید کنین پلاستیک بگ این گروسری بگای پلاستیکی رو دیگه پروموت نمیکنن، نمیفروشن، بعد کاغذی استفاده کنین و به خاطر تمیزی محیط زیست ایشون این قانون رو گذاشتن و بعد کم کم شهرهای دیگه و استیت‌های دیگه هم اینو یاد گرفتن گذاشتن. در سال 1991 1991 right you went to Iraq.
I went to Iraq twice.
Yes, twice.
It was in 1991 and 1993.
در سال 1991 بعد از گالف وار به عراق رفتن که اثرات انوایرمنت و ناراحتی‌هایی که اونجا هستش ببینن و همیشه توی کاری بودن، توی کارهای انوایرمنت بودن، توی کارهایی که وابسته به این جریان هستش زحمت کشتن. All right.
Well said.
I think they understand, but anyway, I translate a little bit. Okay, now let's talk about San Francisco, which is really a big city, and we are in North California, and we all love San Francisco. You become a sheriff of San Francisco. We all Iranians, we were so excited, and we're still very, very excited that you are sheriff of San Francisco. It's a big, big title. So, what is your plans to do to decrease amount of crime, decrease the return of the prisoners again back after they're free, again back to the prison? And what makes you so famous that they're saying that Ross is going to make a difference? Would you say for audience that what is your model and what you want to do to decrease all these problems that are existing? Because other cities can learn from you.
Other cities are learning from
Yeah.
us. San Francisco is actually innovating in ways that I talk often with sheriffs and other elected officials, not only in California but around the country now. The superintendent of education of New York just came out, New York City, came out to inspect our jails because, for example, we have the first high school in the United States in a jail system. And so that all our inmates, if they don't have a high school diploma or certificate, GED, they are required through our classification system to go through to try to acquire that. And then we have a number of vocational schools that my administration has set up. This has proven to help reduce recidivism, repeat offender rates. Today, San Francisco actually has the lowest jail population in the whole state of California per capita. We are a well-known city. Globally, we're a well-known city. We're not as large as some people think. Our population is under 1 million, but our jail population today is frankly around 1,300. It's almost 50% of our capacity, whereas many other counties throughout California, a high majority, are overcrowded and are tortured by the experience of state prisoner realignment, where prisoners are coming back because of Governor Brown and the Supreme Court's plan to return them back to counties. that same bad experience, that bad experience is not happening with us.
That's wonderful. And what do you do for educating prisoners and make them feel confident and feel good after they pay their crime, that they're not coming back personally? What do you do?
Well, the initiative, thanks to my predecessor, Mike Hennessy, who I think was the most progressive sheriff in the United States, and he served as sheriff for 32 years, so he was famous as a sheriff. And I was honored to have his support and follow in his footsteps, and I vowed to continue to magnify on all the great work that he did for so long. But it's going to be through my prism to make it happen. And that means modernizing a lot of what we do in the jail system, even though there were many innovative things that need to be done. Frankly, when you're in county jail, everybody eventually gets out. So even though some people are there longer because of the dysfunction on the state level with the prison system, eventually everybody gets out. So while they're in custody with us, we want their time to be the most constructive, productive, and safe. Important for them, for their own safety, those in custody, and important for our staff who supervises them. But the problem is that once they get out, their likelihood of repeating their offenses is in the first 6 months to a year.
Wow.
So once they're out of our custody, then there's a great reliance on they themselves to follow through their probation or parole and to continue to do the important things that they did inside the jail. If they don't, that's why we'll see repeat offenses. But the good news is we're starting to see the recidivism rates, repeat offender rates, come down quite a bit in San Francisco.
Okay, and what is the reason for that?
Well, I think it's part and parcel of what I just said about our educational and our vocational tracks coming together, our substance abuse. It's true for most jail systems that in San Francisco, like it is for many other urban centers and not urban centers, 70% or more of the inmates have a substance abuse problem. So it's narcotic related or substance abuse related. And treatment and the commitment and discipline to stay on treatment is vital, while also attending to all the other issues to get them back on track. And in the United States, which incarcerates more people than any other country on this planet, almost 50% of the 2.7 million jail population in the whole United States are parents that are incarcerated.
Wow.
So although that's not that high in San Francisco, it's about 38%, 39% of people that are incarcerated are parents. I'm now focusing on the fact of children of the incarcerated because it's the bond between children and those that are incarcerated that I want to make sure that that child, which studies have shown, has a higher likelihood of running in violation of the law just because of studies over generations that have proven that. So now we're trying to create a better bonding system, as long as it's no legal or health reason for their parent who's incarcerated not to be with the child, to create more of a bonding system between the child.
How do you do that?
Starts at birth. Starts actually when in the example, which is not often, that if we have a woman who is incarcerated and is pregnant and is likely to give birth while in jail, we were the first in the state to start something called the Birth Justice Project. Like with my own son and my wife, our son was born at home. We had a home birth. We had midwives. We believe that in that concept that the baby should not be separated from the mother, of course, unless there's a legal or health reason. So the baby should benefit from the breast milk. So we've now installed in the women's jail refrigeration and breast pumps for mothers to be able to provide breast milk for their baby. Typically, around the country, the standard is to separate the mother from the newborn within 3 days. As a matter of fact, in 33 states, they still shackle to the delivery room the woman who's incarcerated while giving birth. We won't do that. Not in California, and certainly not in San Francisco. And so now we're looking for ways so that there be better bonding between the baby and the mother, because especially in the African American community and Latino community, when there is such a harsh impact to children and youth of their incarcerated parent, it's 8 out of 10 maybe, where that youth themselves may find themselves also in violation of the law later in their life. And so we're looking to focus on that as well.
Okay, let me briefly translate that. راست میکرمی میگن که برای خانومایی که حامله هستن یا اصولا پدر مادرهایی که در جیل هستن، کارسنیدد هستن، در جیل نگرشون داشتن، خیلی احتمال هستش که بچه ها به همون راه برن، به خاطر اینکه اینا رو از هم جدا میکنن و بچه کمبود پدر مادر رو احساس میکنه. بر همین پروگرام‌های گذاشتن در سان فرانسیسکو که مثلا اگه یک زنی حامله هستش و در زندان هستش، معمولا در آمریکا بعد از 3 روز باید از بچهش جدا بشه، ولی برنامه‌هایی گذاشتن که بتونه اون زندانی که بچه دار شد بتونه بچهش رو شیر بده، اونجا فصلی درست کردن که باندینگ بیشتری با بچهش بکنه و روابط بین بچه و پدر و مادری که در زندان هستن طوری بشه که از هم دیگه جدا نشن و زندگیشون به اون صورت که بیتونه تباه بشه، به خاطر این جدایی تباه نشه. That is very nice. And گفتن که این برای خیلی از ماینوریتی ها، به خصوص افغانی ها، خیلی هستش که بچه دوباره به همون راه میره که پدر مادر بودن. And also another question I had that I read about you was that public safety, like mental health people, like a lot of people that they're mentally challenged without even them knowing it or being really, really bad people, they act weird and then they they make trouble and they cannot be, nobody can arrest them or calm them down except police and law enforcement, and then they bring them to county jail. Is that true?
It's an epidemic, actually. Yeah. There is a problem in California because of the closure of many of the state hospitals, mental health hospitals, psychiatric hospitals, that the problems are now shifting to local government.
Oh.
And I campaigned on this, and I have now called attention to it in trying to do something about it as sheriff. And that is that the answer is not to criminalize those with psychiatric issues, but we need to protect society from those who are
out of control.
Well, obviously psychotic, mentally disturbed, but I don't believe that the jail system is necessarily the best equipped to do it, unless, of course, somebody has committed the kind of crime that requires them to be incarcerated. Safety is paramount here, and I think that local governments throughout California and this country need to do a better job in answering the question on what to do with, I think, the epidemic of people suffering with mental illness, psychiatric needs, so that they are not like a merry-go-round going in and out of the jail system. And that's exactly what's happening. Just recently in San Francisco, there's been 2 very high-profile murders by 2 very psychotic people.
Wow.
And they're spending time in our jail. They will either go up to state when their process of trial is adjudicated, or they'll stay with us. But if they stay with us, that just means that we need to apply that much more in-jail psychiatric services, and we're starting to see that grow quite a bit.
I see. Okay. Any other point you want to point out to the audience today?
Well, it's a growing population, despite how low our jail population is, which is the good news, because, to be honest with you, I don't think people for misdemeanors really need to be incarcerated. We can alternatively have them serve their punishment at less cost to the taxpayer, because it's expensive. For example, in San Francisco, to incarcerate, it's about $55,000 a year.
Yes, I read about that.
And yet, if they go through, their offenses are narcotics offense, they can go through drug court, they can serve time outside, pay fines, and it's about the 1/6 of a cost of going through incarceration. And we're seeing even better results of them not repeating their offense.
That's true.
Behavioral mental health court for a low-risk offender, we can do that as well, too. Jail really should be for a medium or even more so a high-risk offender, and that's what's occurring in San Francisco. But the population that we're most concerned about right now, I mean, among many of them, is people suffering with mental illness. And because there's such easy access to guns and weapons,
yes,
although I have not signed any weapons permits as sheriff. That's my jurisdiction. I haven't signed any. But people can come into the city and they have guns. They've had them from past. The violence level in this country, in this state and city, just really needs to be confronted.
That's true. You know, Ross, you have met my son, and he's studying to be one day a lawyer, and he did a study for this particular thing that so many minorities, he was told when he went with the student body of UC Santa Cruz for some studies, that so many minorities are wrongly or easily going to jail, and then they go back, and also the jails are so overpopulated and is privatized. And the fact that they are privatized.
I'm not a fan of privatization. Governor Brown, who's trying to alleviate the overcrowding in the state prison system, and he has this tension with the Supreme Court about what that realignment looks like, are now looking to escalate the amount of state prisoners to private prisons out of state. I'm against that. I think that there needs to be an in-state permanent solution, because the idea is not to just like rearrange the deck chairs on the Titanic. The idea is to, if somebody's going to be incarcerated, what is the micro-focused way of making sure that while they're incarcerated and when they get out, how we can rehabilitate them. And frankly, sheriffs like myself throughout the state should be held to answer about how effective we are on reentry, those inmates, prisoners returning back to society, and how effective it is. And the adult probation departments, who are also responsible for the supervision of when somebody leaves, and social service agencies. Everybody should be held to answer on how effective they are. And that's where we're trying to turn our administration to. It's not just about throwing spaghetti against the wall with a new program to see what sticks. We're about, there's got to be strong lines of accountability about saving and bettering somebody's life.
Yes, exactly. Having to pay for it, for our taxes, and also make sure that they don't come back. We have a safer communities. When we don't have criminals, we have safer communities. When we have people that they have a job, they have a life, it affects their lifestyle. They're nicer people. They don't have to come back. We don't have to pay the taxes, and complications are less. So let me just translate that quickly for the audience, and I think we just have a couple of minutes. این خیلی مهمه که ما بدونیم عزیزان که در آمریکا بین 50 تا 55 هزار دلار در سال خرج هر زندانی هست که در زندان نگه می‌دارن. و چون زندان‌های آمریکا توسط مؤسسه‌های خصوصی متاسفانه منیج میشه و مدیریت داره، خیلی الان این روزا هیچ مسئله نیست که هی بخوان زندان‌ها رو زیاد کنن که هم پول بسازن اون اینستیتوشن‌ها و همچنین که مردم تکس بدن، و این در نتیجهش این میشه که آدم‌ها میرن زندان، دوباره برمیگردن، زندگی خوبی ندارن. کامیونیتی جایی که زندگی میکنیم پر از خلافکار خواهد بود و میرن و برمیگردن و ما هم بعد پول و تکسشون رو بدیم. در نتیجه بر همینه که اشخاصی مثل آقای راست میرکریمی، شریف راست میرکریمی میخوان این سیستم رو عوض کنن که هم پریزنرها، زندانیا ادوکییت بشن، یه ذره یاد بگیرن، پروگرامایی براشون باشه، برگردن زندگی سالمی داشته باشن، برنگردن دوباره به زندان و زندان‌ها خلوت بشه، چون زندانی‌ها در آمریکا بزرگترین جمعیت رو تشکیل میدن در زندانی‌های دنیا. از همه جای دنیا بیشتر امریکا زندانی داره و ایشون بر اون کار هستن. آقای راست میرکریمی همیشه ما رو در همه چیز ساپورت کردن، جامعه ایرانی رو. ما هم جامعه ایرانی باید ایشون رو ساپورت بکنیم. الان که به خصوص همچین مقام بزرگی دادن و شریف سان فرانسیسکو که یک عالمه حدود هزاران نفر زیر دستشون هست و بودجه های زیاد دارن زیر دست ایشون هست، ما باید ساپورت کنیم. راست you always supported our Persian community. We always proud of you. From many years, I know you personally for 8 years, and I'm your supporter. So right now that you are in this position as a sheriff of San Francisco, what would you like Iranian community, which they all love you here, and from other states they see that, do for you? Because now I know that you're there.
Well,
where we want
there's
you
never
to be.
consensus in any one community, but I've always
But
I always feel blessed by the support and that's why I always want to return, and I always will. As I said, it's a proud distinction, and I proudly affiliate myself with the Iranian American community. But as you asked me some good questions about, like, what does the sheriff do? Many people don't know. And while many Iranians come up to me and they says, why don't I run for president or governor or mayor? this is what I want to do now because it's a good extension. It's a healthy progression of the work I did as a supervisor in trying to really create a wave effect and, enlift all boats of all communities, especially those who are disadvantaged. So if people want to know more about what I'm doing, I gave you my business card. Yes. They can email me. And I actually answer all my own email. Still, I answer all my own email directly. And we'll put people on our newsletter. We do a monthly newsletter. And it explains to people everything what I'm up to. And I will answer emails.
Okay, that's wonderful.
Yes.
Well, I thank you a lot for coming here all the way from San Francisco. It's a pleasure. It's a privilege for me to have you here in this studio.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for updating everything. And خیلی ممنون از تایم تیوی آقای مجید خستوان که این امکان به ما دادن که با آقای راست میرکریمی صحبت بکنیم. You are, I said in Farsi, افتخار میکنیم بهت. We are proud of you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
خداحافظ.
خداحافظ.